What's up, everybody? Welcome to the New Left. Tonight we have me, Z. We have Chairman K, ADC, and Amira. Tonight we're going to be talking about police brutality. Unfortunately, we're going to be talking about the Jayland Walker case in Akron, Ohio, and the protests that have ensued. We're going to be talking about the what was it? I already forgot the name. Was it Randy Cox?
Yes, Randy.
Yeah.
Randy Cox.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Randy Cox and the paralyzing of his neck, and that after he got put in a police van without being strapped down. We're also gonna be talking about the Highland Park shooter, Robert Crimo, something like that. But first, I'm gonna hit the opening, and then we're gonna get started. So what's going on, everybody?
It's all good.
Let's hear from Chairman K first. Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be back. I know I took a break for a really long time and I needed it, but holy shit, it's so glad to see y'all again. And I'm so happy to be back on, and everything's looking good over here. Yep, I'm doing great.
And Amira, welcome back.
Hello, I'm so happy to be back here, and thank you guys for being patient with me as I got my silly equipment all worked out. So back and ready to roll.
And what's going on, ADC?
Oh, we're just holding her up here in Alberta, Canada, getting ready for Yeehaw Stampede, and hopefully escaping at any time, because who wants to be with the Calgary Stampede and the major COVID outbreak that will follow in the weeks. But yeah, no, we're just sitting here and just enjoying another day, another week here in KKK Canada, and then America.
Another week, another rise in COVID cases, and everyone's ignoring it. So yeah, because I was looking at a graph, and it was just last year it was I don't know, 4,000. So it was high as hell, and it was scary for the time. But now it's I don't know, 5 times that, and people are just want to go see a movie.
Yeah, so, and it's a different variant here, and it's ugly, and we're seeing the numbers in Europe. And the only good part coming from Europe is the old Muppet gave his resignation, so that's a positive. But yeah, no, the numbers from the C-19, it's scary as hell, and I don't know what we're going to do, because every one of our governments pick profits over people, and ensure capitalism is covered. But the human beings are going to just be used as fodder for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's shameful. Speaking of shameful, I wanted to get into the first thing we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the Jayland Walker case in Akron, Ohio. And pretty much what ended up happening is that I think he was I'm pretty sure he was a delivery driver, as far as I know. And he was in a neighborhood, and police went on a high-speed chase, claimed that a bullet went past him, kept chasing him. He got out of his car, and then a chase ensued. They tased him, and then after tasing him, they shot him over 100 times. So already just complete overkill. You hear 100 times, you think somebody has a weapon of mass destruction or something like that. I don't know. Just something that would a gas that would go off and kill a whole neighborhood, apartment complex or some shit. But it's just and he was in. They did find a gun in the car, supposedly, and So, first, before we get started, I have a video, and I'm gonna play it. And I don't know if y'all have been following the Hill lately, and the Hill actually is once again has some cool dialect going on, and this conversation actually is really good, because the radar goes on is on point. First off, it gives out information, but then there's actual non-echo chamber conversation, and the non-echo conversation is it just shows what happens when like you're just outnumbered. However, when she holds her ground against these douchebags. So I think everybody needs to see this. So let's get started.
Last year alone, police shot and killed 1,055 people. That's just counting who they shoot and kill.
Did Z's Wi-Fi go out?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. Storms are brewing everywhere. I know we've got one here, and hoping that we can stay up there. But it's looking like it's frozen. But we've once we get back to that video. But we all know about the Jayland Walker. I mean, like Z brought up that aspect of the shot at 100 times, but
I think it was they shot 90 rounds and around 60 of them hit Mr. Walker. And those were numbers that when I read them were honestly very shocking to hear, very shocking to read, because that is clips and clips and clips and clips worth of ammunition, all for one person. And when I look at this case, and the cops try to justify it by saying he was shooting back at us and there was a gun in the car. Well, even though they may have found a gun in the car, they don't have any footage yet, at least not from what I've seen, of the guy actually shooting at them from the car, like it's GTA or something like that. But let's entertain that logic for a moment, right? So they're like, oh, he was shooting back at us earlier, so we had the right to unload on him. Okay, first, that's very skewered logic because he got out of the car and he was unarmed, right? And you're treating him as if he is armed because he shot at you earlier. Mm-hmm. Even if you go by this really strained logic that the police seem to have, Z's back.
Okay, so I'm back. I apologize about that. I guess that was like my bandwidth or whatever was like just kicking my computer's ass. But continue if you want to. I'm gonna go ahead and get that back up real quick.
Right. I'll just quickly finish a thought. Even if you go by the police's stupid, strained logic of all their excuses as to why they had to shoot this guy.
Okay.
There is case after case after case of when a white person does something equally violent or, resists police in a similar way, they don't show any mercy. They don't show any restraint. And they show mercy and they show restraint. They take more white people into custody who do violent offenses than somebody who they claim shot back at them earlier, even though we don't really have, at least not to what I've seen, any footage of the guy actually doing it. There are cases where white mass shooters have been taken into custody after shooting and killing dozens and dozens of people. But one guy that shot back at you, apparently, while he was in your car, you're going to unload into him and kill him. Even if you go by the police's stupid ass logic here of what to do in what situation, it is very clear that they have it out for black people. It's just not debatable at this point. 90 times, 90 shots. They were working out some aggression there. Jesus Christ. That shouldn't. Oh my God. People like that should not be given any kind of authority to stop people or to arrest people or anything. Just abolish the police is what I'm trying to say. Jesus. I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna.
George Floyd, Eric Garner, Elijah McClain. Anybody police killed some other way but a gun? Anybody like Ronald Green, whose murder they initially reported as a car accident, only for video footage of them killing him to emerge years later? They're not reflected in those numbers at all. It also doesn't account for people like Jacob Blake.
It's all right. Bad internet gets to all of us.
Yeah. Well, Amira, if you can look in the private chat real fast. You can play this role. Do you know how to share on the screen? Okay. If you can play that, that'd be awesome. Unfortunately, I am not the only person in my home that does lives anymore. So that will take some bandwidth.
That's okay. So it's all good. It's all understandable. And
Yeah.
no, this is important. That fantastic clip, because, like you said, it's a different response than what you're getting from your normal MSM.
Well, at some point, even the most absolutely co-opted, corporatized media outlets, when the racism and the aggression are just this plain,
It's overt. It is very overt.
Like, you'd have to literally be blind to not, and I mean literally, you'd have to be blind to not notice that those cops were some murderous cowboy wannabes. All right, like these news anchors, even if they are owned by the ruling class, occasionally they are forced to admit that there are very serious problems. I mean, for Christ's sake, we're seeing CNN articles popping up documenting that Joe Biden is incredibly unpopular amongst Democrats and how people are resenting him for it. They can't cover his ass anymore because his failures are so overt. And when things are this overt, there has to be some acknowledgement by the American media. Otherwise, the American people are more likely to lash out violently at an establishment that refuses to understand them. So think of it as like a social concession on their behalf.
Yeah, exactly. And right before we went live, we were talking about Derek Chauvin and how he was going to be getting another extra 21 years because of it said he violated George
Floyd's human rights. I
Floyd's
remember
civil rights. He was just it was a person that you just couldn't look the other way. There was a bunch of people watching that day. There was a bunch of cameras on him. It was overt as hell. So
it was overt as hell. Yeah, there's no way that because of how high profile the case was, if they let Derek Chauvin go, it would just erupt more anger, more violence, all that stuff that the establishment doesn't want. And they knew that if they did not treat this scapegoat the way they were expected to, then it would lead to a lot of anger and violence. One Derek Chauvin locked away for life gives cops everywhere in America free reign to do whatever they want. It doesn't happen.
One Derek Chauvin led to this. Yeah.
Let
me see if I can do this one more time.
No
and
problem.
If not, we'll move on.
The police shot 14 times and paralyzed, but he survived. It doesn't account for any police brutality beneath death. It's staggering. Police quite literally kill somebody every day in America. Mainstream media just doesn't bother to report on it unless they have a video as heartbreaking as George Floyd's or as absolutely sickening as the body cam footage that was just released in the murder of Jayland Walker. Last week in Akron, Ohio, police shot 25-year-old Jayland Walker 60 times and killed him after they tried to stop him for traffic infractions. Police claimed that Jayland did not stop and instead sped away, at which point the officers engaged in a high-speed chase where they claimed they believed he fired a single shot from the driver's window. When he stopped the car and got out, officers say they tased him, but he continued to run away from them. So they decided, in order to pursue this boy for a traffic stop, they would shoot him to death. 8 officers fired more than 100 shots at him. Think about that. They believed someone committed a traffic infraction. So that to them was worth a high-speed chase that would risk the lives of anybody on the road, and to then just need to get him so bad for these traffic infractions. They tased him and they shot him 100 times. 60 of those bullets hit him. That is a murder. They made an executive decision to kill him. You don't shoot someone 100 times thinking they'll survive. They literally riddled him with bullets for a traffic stop. They continued shooting even as his body lay lifeless on the ground, and then they handcuffed his dead body. Much like in May of this year, when Kansas City police told Leona Hale, a 26-year-old pregnant Black woman, to get on the ground in a parking lot, and she told them she couldn't because she was pregnant. So they shot that pregnant woman 12 times and handcuffed her as she lay bleeding on the ground. She fortunately survived the shooting, unlike 21-year-old Drayshawn Reed, who in 2020, Indianapolis police shot 13 times and killed while on Facebook live stream, then stood over his dead body and said, "That's gonna be a closed casket, homie," before handcuffing his dead body. 8 officers murdered a boy for a traffic stop, and they are on paid administrative leave because this is routine. And in keeping with this routine, as is always the case when a Black person is killed by the police.
Man, this is horrific. Oh, Z, you're muted.
I'm gonna stop it right there. But the rest of that is actually very, very good. There's a debate that gets in, and actually that's in the if everyone looks at the bottom, if that's in the sources, if you want to go watch the rest of that. But yeah, as she said, you don't shoot someone over 100 times, not expecting not to kill them. You're literally making Swiss cheese out of a person. Like that's not. Why?
I have a question. Who the fuck do these cops think they're fooling when they handcuff corpses? Like, did you honestly think you could just wheel this guy dead into the station or the hospital or whatever, and people would just think, oh yeah, he died on the way here or something like that? Like, who do they think they're fooling? Especially when they have body cam footage of that one guy saying to that other guy they shot, that one cop saying that's going to be a closed casket, homie, and then handcuffing his corpse. That not only does that scream maliciousness, right? Not only does that scream I'm a cold-blooded murderer, but putting the cuffs on these guys after you've shot them to death so mercilessly, that's like rubbing salt in the wound. You have to be a sick motherfucker to blatantly display how much power you have over the person you just murdered by cuffing their body as if everyone around you was an idiot and know that you and oh my god, I don't want to say this is parody level. Like, this sounds like what a parody of a police shooting would be.
But that's blatant state murder. Like, that is murder, man. That is literally like, that's Gestapo level. Like, you're not even like hiding the fact of, like, you know, you chase down one person and just gun them down. That's
and Joe Biden is the most progressive president ever, even though he gave like how much money to police departments
and more things like this. Like, under, like, you know, neoliberal watch is just going to put more money in police pockets. So,
God, it's so fucking disgusting. My stomach is churning from hearing that report. Like, the handcuff thing is just really getting to me for some reason. I don't know why. There's just, I know they're doing way worse things that we've shown and we've talked about on this show, but there's just something about them putting cuffs on the corpses of people they've shot to death. There's something about it that's just really getting to me. That's just really, I can't.
It's terrible.
Well, and historically, that's usually what like conquering forces would do to bodies that, you know, they completely decimated, to further denigrate that body and denigrate, you know, like that spirit, and make it even that much more tumultuous for the families that survived. And it's a scare tactic, essentially. And that's part of why, you know, we've talked about this a lot when we talk about police brutality, of why Black and brown people are having to go into either fight, flight, or freeze when it comes to these situations, because they know that the likelihood of them surviving a cop stop is like a 50% chance. And when you look at something like this, it's like he's getting, you know, probably really scared because it is a traffic violation that, you know, he's probably like, shit, maybe I did, this was my fault or something like that. But it's like, of course he's going to run, but we are in such a surveillance state that it makes no sense that 8 officers would need to be hounding this kid, running away from them. There's no need to do that. There's a license plate that they can look at. There's a vehicle that's still there. It's not like they can't go and like find this kid later on. And that's where it's the difference in the treatment between a Black or brown person, but especially Black people in particular, because that's where we're seeing this really heinous acts by police officers. And the handcuffing bodies that are just lying there, it's a way to send a signal to the rest of the community that they don't care about you, they're not there to save you or protect you, and that if you step one slightly bit out of line, this is what's going to happen to you. And unfortunately, it's perpetuating that fear in these communities, and it's giving people no way out. They don't know how to respond to officers, because we've seen if you put your hands up, it doesn't guarantee you safety. If you lay down on the ground, it doesn't guarantee you safety. And if you run away, you're going to get shot at over 100 times. It's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. It's gross.
100%. First off, hey B, thanks for joining us. Much appreciated.
And
we're sitting here going, like, this is historically, like people have to understand this is history repeating itself over and over and over again. There's no difference between the police brutality and the police murder of Black and brown and indigenous people than there is the lynching of like Emmett Till and that before the civil rights movement. Like, the fact that people have been allowed to murder under the guise of, well, it's not illegal. Well, this just proves the fact that just because something isn't illegal doesn't mean it's not fucking wrong. And allowing the police to continue this, and the fact that there is no stopping this unless it is the general public standing up against this machine. Like, we're seeing the farmers in Europe right now, they've had enough. And I think right now, as us of the Western society, we need to do the same thing. And if it starts off as our comrade last week talking about doing nonviolent protest of not buying anything and basically striking from home to ensure that the machine, the money-making machine, is stopped, we have to do that. Because we can't just allow our fellow human beings to be murdered because some piece of shit organization that's driven by the patriarchy to ensure the colonialized society is maintained at the basically the fact that people's lives don't matter. Like, we talk about, we had this whole thing of Black Lives Matter and Indigenous Lives Matter. They don't fucking matter. Unfortunately, they do matter. They matter extremely, very much. They matter, but according to the system, they don't. And people that are handicapped don't matter, and people that are LGBTQTIA don't matter. So how the hell, like, we're doing what we can here at the PVN, trying to educate people and provide perspective and deal with these situations that are always uncomfortable. Like, God, I don't know how we don't break down in tears on a weekly basis doing this stuff. But
there's something we're missing here, though. There's something that a lot of people seem to miss, and it's a horrible revelation when you think about it this way. But when we think about how Black people are treated in America, right? Lynchings never stopped. The cops do them all the time. Not only is the general working class stuck in a system of wage slavery because we have to work to survive and we have like no spare income anymore, any of us, but also private prisons are a huge thing in America. They make a shit ton of money. And it is very clear that because, Black people are over-policed and over-incarcerated and shoved into these big private prisons and sometimes even state prisons, the Constitution, which it still hasn't been amended, apparently, this part, says that it basically gives them leeway to enslave people in prison, slave labor in prison, or pay them pennies a month or a few dollars a month for manufacturing products. And it makes me wonder how many products in the United States that people just buy off the shelves are manufactured in prisons where people have no rights. Black people never stopped being heavily oppressed in the United States of America, and they will never stop being oppressed in the United States of America as long as the system remains intact. One of the pillars of capitalism, and there are many pillars, like ADC said, there's patriarchy, there's colonization, there's racism, there's ableism, there's a bunch of different pillars that keep up this horrible, shitty temple that we find ourselves in. But racism is a huge one. It's probably one of the oldest ones, to be honest with you. It's very saddening to think about all this stuff. But what I do know and what I do understand is that the fact that people right now, I know we like to shit on liberals whenever they're like, why are the police so violent now? No, the police have always been this violent. They've always been this racist. But the fact that more people are criticizing the police now, and the fact that whenever high profile killings like this happen and stuff like that, it makes the rounds. The fact that we're sitting here talking about it, that is something I think, is a very good thing. I think that the fact that we're just here talking about this, the fact that every major news outlet, from The Hill to CNN, even my network in Canada, the CBC, our network over here, the fact that everyone's talking about these killings, eventually this has to lead towards some sort of change. Although, my hypothesis and my theories can be wrong, as they're just that. My theory is that eventually people will see the police for what they really are. But unfortunately, that's just my guess as a white person. And, my perspective isn't that valuable when it comes to this topic, because I haven't lived the experiences of the people who've been oppressed by the police. Amira, I wanted to ask you, actually, when these high-profile killings happen, when there's yet another case of police brutality circulating around and everyone starts covering it, at what point do we see public perception of the police turn overwhelmingly against them? And I'm talking more so than the George Floyd riots. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I do think that you're right when it comes to people kind of waking up to the police and their extreme failures, their ineptitude to do their job, and also just the fact that they do get so much money from taxpayers, but it kind of begs the question of where is this money going and how is it being used? And I think one of the really good examples of that kind of situation, unfortunately, is with the Uvalde shooting in Texas, because Texas is a very pro Second Amendment, pro gun. They have concealed carry and they also have open carry, and this is a state that has very much been supportive of candidates that want to really continue to push up the Second Amendment. And I think for that community in particular, and kind of the rest of the state, and then it's precipitated out into pretty much the rest of the nation, the Uvalde shooting really kind of encapsulates everything that is wrong with police, because this was a district that they spend over 40% of their budget for that district just on the police alone. But on that day, their radios weren't working. Chief Arredondo has said that he didn't believe that he was in charge, but he that's what we've been told, but he won't provide any information. And it's all of that kind of stuff, seeing how long it took them to act, to respond, that they were caring more about their own personal lives and saving their own children from these classrooms. And people are seeing that and waking up to the fact that police are not doing the role that we think that we expect them to do, that propaganda in movies and television loves to tell us, that they're here to protect us and they're going to go in and be the heroes and be strong, and that they're willing to take a bullet for someone. They're not. Now, some of them are. There's those few good apples that occur in the police force, but in general, we're seeing that there is such a lack of care and desire to be that hero and to save people's lives. And I think that that's really been the big change. I think Uvalde really has kind of set the stage for the conversation about how much money are we giving police and what kind of training are they getting? Because with Uvalde, it was they had all the training, they had all the money, and there were still all of these failures, and they failed to act. They weren't willing to go in and take care of the shooter. And we've been given lies after lies after lies. And everything I've seen of people that have been interviewed within the community, they are just devastated by this. And they are showing that tension and that animosity towards the police, to the point where they had to close out city council meetings and make the public leave. And these were people that had victims in that shooting, family members that died. So it's I think that's the wake up call, but it's unfortunate that we have to continue to have these situations to get people to wake up or to have it finally like affect them personally. And we're seeing that in a lot of our just general situations right now. Too many people don't give a shit until it actually affects them. And that's a whole other conversation for another time. But
that leaves some. Well, hey, Z's back.
That is an issue. I'm on my tablet now.
Okay.
But I can still do stuff in the background. Now, as far as ADC was talking a little bit earlier about history repeating itself, and like I've been doing for the New Revolutionary Reader. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually doing exactly what I was talking about state-sponsored violence and the fact that like about the similarities between like Jim Crow and Nuremberg. And then the fact that like there was a case in South Carolina in the early 40s, George Stinney Jr. He was a 14-year-old boy, and what ended up happening was that he was the youngest person electrocuted in the electric chair here. Two little girls, they were white, were playing one day, and they crossed the train tracks, and they talked to him and his sister, but they were the last people who saw him. And actually, what I go into is what I'm talking about is the fact that it was a state-sponsored thing, because what ended up happening is that even if he would have gotten it, the police found him, arrested him, and then they were like, okay, no parents here. We're gonna coax a confession out of you. So they got a confession, and they pretty much said that they eventually found the girls, and they were like beaten to death, like really terribly, and they never found out who did it. First off, so that's like in its own kind of like fucked up, you know. That's definitely fucked up. You never find out the actual murder of these two like little girls, and then they blame it on another child. They said that it was because he failed to, after his plans to have sex with one of them failed, he decided to kill both of them. And his 14-year-old, and it was him and his sister playing. So what ended up happening, it was a false confession, and they put him on the electric chair. And it was terrible. And the fact that, you know, even if he got out, there was a lynch mob waiting for him. So either way, legislatively, it was.
That sounds, not only does that sound fucked up, but like that sounds similar to the plot of Green Mile, does it not? Like that's
what it is based off of.
Oh shit! I knew there was something familiar about that. That is so unbelievably. That just makes it sadder now. Great. I think there's an idea here. However, that I think a lot of people need to return to, right? And I know, you know, we've talked about them quite a lot, but I'll bring them up again because they're a group that I never get tired of studying. You guys remember when the Black Panthers had community defense, and not only they had people who were armed walking around in their neighborhoods to ensure that not only people didn't hurt each other, and that if a crime happened or something like that, they would be able to resolve it on their own terms without brutalizing people. But also, if the cops pulled into the neighborhood and tried any of that, though their bullshit, their usual bullshit, these armed motherfuckers would be standing there and be like, "Yeah, good evening, guys. Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing in our community? Oh, you're gonna brutalize some of us, or you're gonna like come around and make people feel uncomfortable? Nah, just turn away." And because, you know, open carry laws and all that kind of stuff, they were armed and they were able to basically, I don't want to say negotiate, but like show sovereignty over their own communities. And honestly, the fact that the cops were willing to pursue this young man and just turn him into Swiss cheese over a traffic violation, when they could easily just, like Amira said, track him down at his home and be like, "Hey, here's a ticket," or whatever. No, they decided to kill him. The fact that the cops are getting like this comfortable being this overtly and openly racist and brutal, despite the fact that they're on camera 24/7, I think community defense needs to be revisited. I think organized community defense needs to be revisited. And I think having trained, competent, armed people within Black communities, keeping said communities safe, I think that could actually be a way to curb police violence, against minorities. Or I could be wrong here. My perspective is just one.
In my opinion, right now, yeah, I think that needs to happen. But right now, we have to figure out a way to do it, because there are open carry laws starting to come back. I mean, there's a double-edged sword. I mean, people can start. I mean, everyone can start open carrying again specifically, but we have to get people organized to a point where they're able to have some type of like militaristic threat. If I have to put it that way, because essentially, like when you see like these neighborhoods where cops are just patrolling, they're occupied territory. They are occupied territories. There's no difference between a police just patrolling or a foreign military entity in a foreign country just patrolling like a city, or patrolling like the area, like patrolling their area. And that's what they're doing. And they're, like you said, we were talking about, they're stoking fear, and they're stoking terror, and they're murdering people, and they're getting away with it because people have been like propagandized for so long, thinking that they're always the good guy. And it's like, how many people would just be like, what did he do? What did he do? What did he do? It's like nothing. He was literally like, even if he we can't. I was listening to something earlier. Like, we can't pull, like, Black people can't pull up their pants out of the situation. We've tried that. Literally, like, Obama happened. I hate to bring that up, but he literally got to the highest office, and there was still jokes about him and shit like that. There was still people trying, like, threatening to kill him and shit like that. So, like, that's a myth. Like, all that's bullshit. It just has to do with the fact that these motherfuckers are racist as fuck, and they want to see some blood spill.
And the fact is, and you're absolutely right, Z. But the propaganda starts fucking early, and it starts with the resource officers that they call them here in Canada. But your fucking cops that are placed in schools, and they're placed in as protection, and they placed in, come and get your baseball card or hockey card or whatever of your favorite cop, and they play it all nice, and they're at the fairs and they're whatever, playing it nice to the kids, pretending that they're fucking nice. So then once that kid becomes a teenager, if that child is of Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, they've got the odds are not in your favor of fucking surviving, because you go from, even if you can bring up, hey, I've known you since grade 1, it doesn't matter, because all they see is the color of your skin, and they'll fucking kill you because they're allowed to. And we've been snowed with this bullshit propaganda of the police are good. And we're all learning, not only are the police fucking awful, but they're fucking useless. And they don't do anything. The fact that they're making hand over fist money of budgets in every community across North America, and they're only solving 38% of the crimes, that's a fucking crime, and something needs to change.
I remember that, actually. I remember that. Like, as a Canadian child myself, I can vouch for that. Resource officers did come into school frequently, and I remember them in elementary school as well. An ironic part, and this is something I'm actually happy about, is that they would come in once a year in elementary school to teach us about the absolute horrors and dangers and evils of marijuana. Every single year. It was specifically marijuana. They would always single out marijuana as being like the god king of all the drugs, and it's the gateway drug and all that kind of stuff. And they would show us really poorly put together ads, like anti-marijuana ads of people getting arrested for pot possession. And for some reason, and it never clicked with me until earlier in my youth, they always had footage of not white people getting arrested for for weed possession and weed distribution and stuff like that. And you fast forward all the way till now, and weed is legal, and everyone's fucking doing it in Canada. I wish I could track down those cops, knock on their door, and just smoke a fat blunt in front of them and be like, "Hey, you remember me from the 6th grade? How you guys doing? Oh, look,
They'd
look
beat
how
you.
cool I am. You want to search
I was
me
about to
for
say they'd
that?"
whoop your ass for something else. They'd be like, he was
Yeah,
trespassing.
you've got a broken tail light.
Yeah, then they'll just kill me for something else. You're absolutely. It would still be pretty funny though.
It would be funny.
It would be
Like
fun,
2 minutes.
but yeah.
Yeah, like rest in peace, Mr. Walker, Jayland Walker, and
Yeah, resource officers like we had them in American schools too. There's always like some bald fucking cop who flirting with high school girls, all weird and shit. And teachers, and they're like, yeah, go ask that guy. He's technically, but he's like, dude's also like the basketball coach. Fucking, he's a douchebag.
He's the commish. Yeah.
There are so many former cops being coaches for schools.
All I do is yell at people. It's like, if you yell at me like this on the field, like, I can't imagine what you do like in the uniform.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
It's just it was a time. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can share screen with this thing. I was gonna share one of the things from the CNN article on Randy Cox.
For some reason, the Randy Cox story, it was very familiar. Not for some reason. What am I talking about? There was another infamous case a few years ago of a black guy getting arrested and then thrown into a police van. And then later, after a not so smooth drive, he was found with his neck broken. And I don't know what these rides are called, but I know they have a name of some kind. And essentially, it's
purposely just like driving like assholes.
Yeah, just purposely driving like an asshole, like it's fucking ping pong back there, just like damaging the guy's vertebrae in his neck as much as you possibly can. Which is
because that's just like it's just like pure metal in there. It's literally just sitting. It's messed up.
Yeah, you just get trauma.
I've got the article. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a CNN article with the Connecticut man was injured while in a police van. He may never walk again, his lawyer says. A man in police custody slid headfirst into an interior wall of a transport van in the Connecticut city of New Haven on Father's Day. Video released by the city shows an incident his family said Tuesday left him partially paralyzed. Richard Randy Cox Jr., 36, suffered a serious injury to his neck and spine while he was in custody of New Haven police, and the incident is being investigated by the Connecticut State Police, Mayor Justin Illiker says. 5 New Haven police officers, including the van's driver, have been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Illiker said in a letter shared with New Haven residents on his Twitter account last week, "What happened to Mr. Cox was just terrible and completely unacceptable. It will not be tolerated in the New Haven Police Department," the mayor said in a news conference on Tuesday. Cox of New Haven is in intensive care. His attorney, Ben Crump, said in a separate news conference that his sister, Latoya Boomer, said her brother has a breathing tube and a feeding tube. He can move his left arm and nod or shake his head, she said Tuesday. Incident happened June 19th when New Haven police arrested Cox on suspicion of illegally possessing a handgun and other accusations. Court documents obtained by CNN show he has been charged with threatening in the first degree, a felony charge among other charges. Well, a prisoner van transported Cox to a New Haven police detention facility. An officer who was driving made a sudden stop to avoid a motor vehicle accident, and Cox in the back of the van was injured. The city released 6 videos related to Cox and his arrest.
You right there.
That's
so messed up. That's so messed like it's like we're gonna avoid an accident,
and we're gonna break this guy's neck.
Yeah, exactly.
Does no one else find this situation a tad ironic? Because aren't the cops the biggest fucking stingy pieces of shit? when you're driving wrong or recklessly or make a mistake in traffic or something like that, then they'll pull you over and keep you there for 9 million years while they fill out info on their little techie computers in their cruisers. Aren't they the biggest fucking like pieces of shit when it comes to driving? Yet when they're transporting somebody who's been arrested for threatening in the first degree or whatever the hell they wanted to slap on this guy's wrist, like, and they just drive so recklessly that this guy ends up getting his neck broken. Like, isn't this now we can drive horribly. We can drive so awful that it gets people hurt and even killed. But you guys, no, you all get tickets and shit like
There's
that.
so many times you see like cops just speeding just to go like do like something very like not life-threatening, go help like some life-threatening case, and they're just like speeding down the road.
So one last point from that though is in the footage they released of him being put out of the van into a wheelchair, and he repeatedly tells officers he cannot move and ask for help, but they keep telling him to sit up and move his legs. So he clearly is injured, and as anyone who's gone through first aid training, as a first responder, if you are first aid trained, you have to be a first responder, like legally in here in Canada. I'm not sure what the laws are in the States, but in Canada, if you're a certified first aid trained individual, you have to legally provide first aid as a first responder. So not only are the police under this fucking bullshit of we save lives and we do all this stuff and we take fucking cats out of trees and help the neighbors and shit, they basically ignored this person's pleas and ignored the medical, like the fact is that he's injured. So when you're injured, you're going to not want to move a person to risk any further injury. So clearly they gave no fucking shit about this person, and the videos are showing this, but the mayor is going to investigate this, that, oh, this is just an incident. Clearly they fucking don't care about him, and if he would have been paralyzed and died, they would have just fucking handcuffed him and then arrested him with some trumped up charge anyway.
It's true. I mean, I saw the video, and yeah, he's I can't move. He can't move his legs because he's paralyzed. And like you said, like it's amazing that he wasn't injured. They don't even know. They may have injured him even further from moving him.
It's a fucking miracle they didn't kill
the
guy.
Pulled him out of it. They just pulled him out of the thing. Like it's so brutal, and like yeah, we're not gonna share that. It's really bad.
God.
And so one thing that keeps popping up, and Chairman brought this up, and we're going to bring it up in the final topic with the SCOTUS. Now, what people have to understand, when SCOTUS was first created, it was to be that overseeing power over your political system. Well, now we're learning that SCOTUS is more corrupt than the political system. Who the fuck is overseeing SCOTUS? Because if no one's overseeing SCOTUS, then it's fucking the Hunger Games. Because we don't have a fucking hope of doing anything, because we can see the game plan they're playing. It's the long game of Clarence Thomas. It's the long game with all the rest of these right-wing religious fighting fucktards. They want to change the rules, and what they'll do, already starting with Roe versus Wade, where they'll make it's not their decision, they'll leave it up to the state. However, if it's under gun control, then it's their decision. So they pick and choose what decision goes through them, and then ultimately the power is ensured in the alt-right and the religious right, or the centrist libs that are doing fuck all about talking about how we need the votes and we need you to fucking donate more money to us so we can be voted in so we can fucking lose. So when we get to that last point, Chairman, with Moore versus Harper, and what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
Well, oh, sorry. See, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, in that case, when we get to that, because first we're gonna get to Robert Crimo first.
Oh,
The
I'm sorry, forgot about fucking Waldo.
Yeah, Waldo. That's what we're calling him. Because yeah, he was Waldo, and I want to talk about that before we actually get into it. It was funny how that failed right wing campaign started, where it's like, this guy's a socialist, this guy's left wing, and all these fake pictures came up, and it was like, nah, bro, this dude has like a Trump flag cape, and like dressed up like you said, like dressed up like Waldo at a Trump parade. Like, it was pretty amusing to see that, but they go out of their lengths to try to make it seem like it's, and literally like the only reason they said that is because he had pink hair. And that automatically means like lip.
Yeah, like as
Part of
if,
the LGBT community. Yeah, look at your pink hair.
as if right wingers don't dye their fucking hair. I've seen right wingers with horrible dye jobs, man. Yeah, I legit. It's either they're skinheads or they look like they just got out of like military training and then quit halfway through because they're pussies, which most of them have, or they just do
Giuliani
dye jobs to look like those hip young millennial right wingers.
Sure, like Giuliani there with the tar that's dripping down his face as he's at the Four Seasons lawn care because he's such an idiot and couldn't fucking book the Four Seasons hotel for the press conference.
I'm curious to know when they arrested this guy, when they arrested this horrible man. How did
you want to get one of the article? You want to get the I think there's a video for that. Not like it's not. They're showing video of people there, but
in one of the articles, it said that a neighbor later saw him in a vehicle and called 911. And a few hours after the shooting, a police officer pulled over Crimo a few miles north of the shooting scene, and he was taken into custody without incident.
Yeah.
So he's given, the kid glove treatment, and it's like, let's get down to it. It's because he's white. It's because a police officer that's engaging with him doesn't see him as a threat, a scary person.
And he's doing his job for him.
And yeah. And this is also a long-standing person within the community. He's a third generation Crimo. I think that's how you say his last name. And it was his father that was going up for the mayoral race that lost. So it's like, this was probably a kid that lots of people knew. And it's pretty evident that like he was a quiet kid when he was in high school, kind of nerdy. But even his family knew that he was struggling with things because he had suicidal, thoughts, said he was going to kill everyone like in his family. Police had been to his home, had seen all of the weapons that he had. Oh, so it's not like he wasn't known to the police and to the public, in at least, within some of that circle. But of course he gets treated with kid gloves, and I'm sure, the defense will be that, he wasn't in his right mind and he's struggling. But a Black person doesn't get that opportunity to defend themselves or to be, to have a good defense of like, oh, they've had a really shitty life and an upbringing that led them to do this. And so we need to give them a little bit of slack. No, they get shot 60 times in the back kind of thing. It's insane.
It is insane. It shows the underlying like racism of the country, and it shows like how like a person can just like murder a bunch of people and just their skin color, they just get like acts that they want Burger King and McDonald's. Yeah. Like, I mean, each time like we see that, we've seen every like almost without a doubt, except for Uvalde, because an ICE agent shot and killed the kid. Like, but besides that, like every other shooter goes in unharmed.
And I still question that they needed to do an actual like death shot to the shooter in Uvalde. And that's why, because it's like we never get to fully understand why someone has done this. We have to go off of tangential, evidence when it comes to like who they've spoken to possibly. And there's a lot of social media activity between both Crimo and also the guy that was in Uvalde. But they constantly have a death blow on a black or brown shooter, but they don't on a white person. And then it's the white person that's able to get the, mental instability defense. And then it's either they get life in prison or who knows, it might be another Rittenhouse kind of situation. Hopefully not, probably not. But it's like, that's where people go with this because you see the difference in treatment. And it's like, if they continue to do these death blows, because we're told that these people are trained, so they could shoot the guy in like, the shoulder or in the leg, like find a way to disarm him, but keep him alive so that we can figure out what is actually going on. And it makes me very suspect in all of these shootings that are going on, especially because so many of them are happening right now. It's like, it's almost like they're picking and choosing which shooter gets to live and which gets to die. And it just leads me down an even more like kind of crazy path because I'm just like, what is happening here?
Then we go into Alex Jones territory. We never want to fucking go there.
No, not Alex Jones territory. It's just the like.
Saying, with the shootings, there's so many red flags when it comes to these shootings in regards to like look at this the one on the 4th of July. How many fucking police were in that parade?
Exactly.
Why the fuck didn't they do anything then? Like I'm watching the videos of the poor parents fucking dragging their toddlers and dragging fucking strollers away, and people protecting that poor child who lost both their parents because they were fucking murdered by this piece of garbage. But the police are in the fucking parade, and we all know the police are never not armed because it's always safety. We always have to be safe and make sure the public is safe. So they've got fucking every AK-47 and all that shit in their fucking trunk. And how many, like, if you shot a fucking guy 100 times and you hit him 60, what fucking sort of firearm do you carry? So if other police are carrying the same thing, they could have shot this fucking guy easy.
Did you guys see the photograph of the police like crying and sobbing as they're walking down the street after the shooting? The same cops that were supposedly there to keep people safe and stop this from happening. Jayland Walker, unarmed when he's out of the car. Yeah, he's worth 100 rounds, right? This guy, like... Oh my God! These white shooters keep getting away.
And why I created the fucking shirt just for this month for the PBN. Domestic terrorism, the place where whites do all the work but get none of the credit.
That is very scary, but it is very unfortunately true. But it is becoming apparent that we cannot rely on the authorities to keep us safe in these situations. And I think for better or worse, because, gun legislation is not going anywhere in the United States, it's not making any progress at all. It's never going to, not in our lifetime, at least, or not not anytime soon. I think people need to take advantage of that. I think people need to understand that we cannot trust the authorities to keep us safe from psychopaths, right-wing psychopaths that the state and the police like to enable and let go and slap on the wrist. And then when the carnage is all done, it's like,
or they're part of the group themselves. And that's what other things we're learning is how much white supremacy and racism and homophobic bigotry is involved from the ground up in your police state.
Exactly. And a lot of these kids, it's like this self-deputization that the Second Amendment gives white people, and the fact that it's metastasized to something that's just like not just on indigenous and black people. It's like just killing everybody. Like it's not just focused on it was focused on like black people, not focused on just like anybody because the way of life that these men were promised aren't happening. and they had entitlement. They had entitlement, and they thought they were going to get what they wanted, and they for reasons unknown to us, they didn't get what they weren't given the dream that they were promised because they had a certain came from a certain background or came from a certain type, whether they were lame, whether they didn't like themselves, whether they associated themselves with a group, but deep down they didn't want to accept that yet. They're but it just shows, but it metastasizes and becomes something that goes out of control.
I'm a young white person in my 20s/30s. I am not being treated the way I expect to be treated by the society around me, so I'm going to make it other people's problem by killing them. That's
quite literally, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's that mentality that exists in a lot of the minds of police officers. These are people that, were either it's common that they were the bully in high school and they want to keep feeling that sense of superiority, or it's people that just they want to feel superior to others and have that kind of control. And I don't deny that there's some that go into the police force wanting to do good, wanting to affect some positive change for their communities. But it's those very same people that either get pushed out of the system entirely or they get absorbed into it. And that's really kind of when it comes to Jayland Walker, and you see this kind of mentality, almost like a hive mind that's going on between these 8 officers. And it's they turn into a little military force, thinking this is some video game or something. And it's no, this is real life. You have deadly weapons on you. You have the power to take someone's life. That should have a lot more standards to it. It should have a lot more, testing requirements and hours of, practicing and research and training, but it doesn't. And the requirements for officers is getting less and less. And then they have these bargaining agreements that protects them from so many things. And all of these officers right now are on paid administrative leave. So there's no if you're in kindergarten and you do something bad, the teacher takes away your toy, puts you in the corner, and you have to deal with it for 10 or 20 minutes kind of thing. We have nothing like that when it comes to police. And with what SCOTUS is doing when it comes to Miranda rights, that there's a recent case that's been discussed. I can't remember the name right now, but it's it's putting people's lives at even more risk when it comes to police officers, because it's taking away our ability to actually hold them to account when they don't uphold the laws and they don't read you your Miranda rights and they don't give you that just common decency as another fellow human being. And that's really, I think, what the long-term goal of SCOTUS is right now. That goes into Harper, the Moore v. Harper case. They're trying to bring a lot of control back to the states, and it's the very states that have all of these really bad gerrymandering issues that can fix the way that votes go, the way that these electoral votes get disseminated. And that's going to have an ever increasing effect on these communities when it comes to being able to actually affect change, because they're basically trying to rig the system for their own benefit. And the Democrats are helping them do it. It's part of the worst part of this, because Democrats' inaction is what's allowing the Republicans to usher in probably the next 40 to 50 years of legislation and more police state action, more control in the state and also the federal level, and amping up people's ability to have guns, but other people that can't. It's really scary.
Very quickly, Felice just showed us a very compelling news story. Apparently, people in Arizona will no longer be able to close range record police due to a new bill that was signed by Governor Doug Ducey on Wednesday, and apparently makes it illegal for anyone within 8 feet of law enforcement activity to record police. My God, man, you land of the free, my ass. This is just surveillance state shit. Like conservatives will point at socialists and yell 1984 whenever we talk about free healthcare. But when it comes to Republicans passing these laws that will make it harder for people to hold the police accountable, make it impossible for people to hold the police accountable. It's like, no, land of the free, we're protecting freedoms.
They don't understand. They don't even understand the like 1984. Like, to be honest, like they just yell it. It's like a 1984 is like a dog whistle now.
Well, this is why, like, we're the way I'm sitting here, and it's out of. I just feel so helpless right now because people need to understand. Like, other people are shitting on other podcasters right now and getting huge fucking views and whatever, but you're missing the point. The point is that all these fucking corrupt pieces of garbage are changing the rules before we can even vote. You're changing the rules while they're in power that they can't be changed back. Like, this is like, people think that it's like the Handmaid's Tale. It is the fucking Handmaid's Tale. But no, you have to open your fucking eyes and see it. We're not just sitting here Chicken Little going, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. The sky is fucking coming down on our heads. And we're not even got close to the environmental chaos and the environmental revolution that we're going through. That fucking, we've got scientists are saying 6 to 8 years that human life will be gone because we're past that point of doing anything. So it's like, you're going to have full control, but it is going to be the Hunger Games. You're going to have a dystopian society, and people are calling it out, but others are just calling us conspiracy theorists. And then we're the radicals, and we're Antifa, and we're this, and we're the danger, and the fucking liberal moderates are handcuffing us with censorship. So this video is probably going to get demonetized, is going to be censored. I fucking can see it right now, and I apologize to our group for this, but because of the fact we're speaking truth to power, and speaking truth to power is censored. They don't want you to do that. We have these conglomerates that own all media, and they're censoring the message that people need to hear and snowing us with bullshit about someone going through appendicitis or some fucking other asshole getting married or all this celebrity bullshit while society is being raped and pillaged behind our backs.
Agreed.
Well said.
And speaking of enabling legislation, let's move on to the next thing. Moore versus Harper. It's our last topic for tonight. Moore versus Harper it was a case that, it actually stayed above me, North Carolina. Gerrymandering has been a very huge issue in North Carolina, and in the South, period, and with just Republicans, period, and Democrats do it too. Gerrymandering is just an issue in politics, period, and unfair, voter disenfranchisement or just kicking candidates off the ballot, as we're seeing with the Green Party in North Carolina. We had Republicans kick Democrats off. We've seen Democrats kick off other parties that they don't think that should be on the ballot. But pretty much, this case, if the Supreme Court rules, which more than likely we are hoping no, but we know deep in our hearts that they usually do the opposite of what we hope. The Supreme Court would allow gerrymandering to run free. So, do we have a article or anything?
Well, before we begin on this topic, it should be noted that while it's true Republicans and Democrats both perform gerrymandering of, they're both responsible for basically turning the states into reds and blue states, right? Like whatever the fuck that means. But these tactics are very, I don't want to say covert, but they're very under the carpet under the radar kind of stuff. It's how, it's how they're able to subtly get away with sabotaging people like Bernie Sanders and kicking the Green Party off the ballot and all that kind of stuff, right? But essentially, the danger is if Moore versus Harper is overturned, there is no legal way to hold people accountable for doing this kind of stuff, and they won't have to be covert about it anymore. They can openly overturn election results if they don't like them. They can openly sabotage entire races, and no one will be able to hold them accountable. This will cement red states as red states. It will cement blue states as blue states. And when you have a country that is so unbelievably fractured, keep in mind, we're 2 fucking court cases in terms of like how the Supreme Court is going to return control to the states, right? We are 2 fucking cases in. We had Roe v. Wade, which had half the country get their rights taken away. Now we're having Moore v. Harper, which will allow these people to stay in power indefinitely as long as they want by just making it so like, yeah, I don't like this election result, I'm going to overturn it. The dominant parties will make the fucking rules in these states. So not only will you never be able to vote people into power at these states to fight for abortion rights and get Roe v. Wade back, or at least get local abortion rights back, you're never going to be able to vote these people out of power, period. They will stay there forever. This is how the republic dies. This is how democracy dies. A quote from Star Wars.
And this is, the last breaths, like you're saying. And I think that it's very important to point out that once that happens, like you said, that's good for both parties, because like each state that is its color will just stay its color, because it'll just make sure that the other party or whoever's trying to come in and might actually have a chance at like taking over, or like, riding a wave at any point. There won't be any waves. It'll just be whoever the king Democrat or king Republican wants.
It's so unbelievably scary. And I know I don't want to say this has become a buzzword, because it's a buzz term, because it's 2 words, but Americans, you guys cannot just sit around and say, yeah, things are bad, but another civil war will never happen. And then like continue to spout off a bunch of technicalities as to why a state can't secede, why this can't happen, why this will happen, why this won't happen. When you allow your Supreme Court to make so much changes to basically the law of the land, when you return all that power to the states, when you create a country where in one state you're supposedly protected and supported by the government, and then in another state you are openly brutalized and have your rights taken away and stuff like that, and the laws vary so unbelievably in scale, you can't govern a country like that. That is a recipe for disaster. That is a recipe for splitting the union. This is unbelievable.
And then you have the mention of Brown versus the Board of Education. Thomas mentioned that shortly after the other one was overturned. So they're coming for everything. They're coming for civil rights. They're coming to make this a police state, and to ensure full control for the capitalist society. So, but understand, with capitalism, it can't sustain this current system. It needs to feed itself. And the only way it feeds itself is by exploiting workers and exploiting other aspects. If they can't exploit anything, it's going to die. So that's where we have to come together and shut the system down in regards of making this impossible for them to continue with capitalism. Whatever the case may be it community gardens, be it mutual aid, be it community armed, everything is on the table now. It has to change. We have to come together. And we have to do something to change the system. And I'm going to give a little bit of a heads up here that I'm working on here in Alberta, Canada, the mutual aid manifesto for Alberta. It's going to provide mutual aid in all the different areas that are currently held by our current elected, well, stolen government of Alberta. And these captains and co-captains are going to make sure that they're engaged in the political sector as well. So that will come afterwards.
I think the only worry I have about promoting, community defense, it's not that I think it's a bad idea. I just worry about the fact that like we do have such a militaristic kind of police force, especially here in the US. I mean, we have police forces that have tanks and, super armored, weapons or, caravans and things like that, a civilian would never get anywhere close to being able to have, for themselves or for their community. So that's kind of the only worry that I have about something like that. And that's why I really liked the show last week talking about doing a strike and doing it from home, because it's something that, you don't have to be confrontational. You don't have to be like outside and going to a protest. It's something that you can just truly do from inside and just not contribute to the economy as a whole. So that's just kind of the only fear I have about promoting community defense, just because no one's ever going to be able to match what the police have.
No, and it's more along the lines of, like, I know our comrade Austin is working on that in Alabama about communes and community communes that are safe spaces for people. Not necessarily we're not talking about warfare and whatever, but we're talking about like having that sort of safe aspects that our comrades bubbles are doing in their places, of being able to be trained for mass shootings, being able to be trained and educated when you're facing these sort of incidents, to be able to protect yourself and your community.
If I may interject a little bit here, I think we're missing something that is very important. If you guys wouldn't mind me saying something quickly about this.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so Amira, your concerns are very valid, and a lot of people who have the same concerns, those concerns are valid. Safety is the number one priority. But I don't want to be that person, and I'm not going to shoot down the idea of like, oh, we need to be careful about community defense because of safety. I'm going to say it. That idea is very much rooted in, I hate saying this, but white cowardice. You want to know why? Our safety is already in jeopardy. Our safety is already up in the air. The police don't need a reason to kill us. The military doesn't need a reason to kill us. They will do it if and when the time does come. And I know this because, well, throughout America's existence, they call what they call the Indian Wars, even though that's a horrible derogatory term for the Native Americans. The Native Americans actively resisted the U.S. military for centuries. For like half the U.S.'s existence, there were constant wars against the native tribes. The natives were outnumbered. They were outgunned. They were outmatched, out everything. That whole thing you said where the military and the police have equipment that we don't have, the natives knew that too. The white people had cannons. They had a bunch of cavalries. They had Gatling guns. They had all this shit. But yet they still resisted because they knew that whether they fought or not, they were going to get hurt. They were going to get killed. So they may as well take the chance of fighting and winning. And I fast forward to the Black Panthers, who were successfully able to keep their community safe and repel the police when they were armed and patrolling their own communities. And fast forward to my country in Canada, where we're on stolen land. So I don't feel comfortable even saying my country anymore. But the Mohawk tribe successfully managed to keep their land from being destroyed and turned into a goddamn fucking golf course by arming up and resisting the military and the police. And there doesn't necessarily need to be armed conflict. But the fact that if you are going towards somebody to extort them or to hurt them or whatever, and you see that they're armed, you went there so that you can like easily exercise your power. Most of these white supremacist fucks don't expect their victims to fight back. And that's not saying that they won't fight as well. But these people, at the end of the day, they're more likely to be cowards than the people who are defending themselves. There is nothing more dangerous than somebody who is defending themselves. And I honestly think that if we just shove the idea of community defense out the window because, oh, we might get hurt, we're going to get hurt anyway. We're going to get killed anyway. This is
I think that the idea of community defense is good. But what I'm saying, but I don't think everyone is not going to be that person either. Everybody is not going to be able to be like, I'm going to take up arms for the struggle. Armed struggle is a specific thing for specific people. Like, for example, I think that I think that self-defense and knowing and having self-defense and being armed is a good idea. We've seen that like in the last week, like we were talking about, like Bubbles does, and we just saw in the last week there was also a pro-choice rally that was armed, and people left them alone because they had people who were guarding them. But you have to, the right people have to be doing it, and it's complicated. It's not complicated in the fact that we should automatically do self-defense, but when the Black Panthers are doing it, there was a lot less surveillance, and we had to think about the fact about where we are, and we had to understand that we can do it, but we have to not be adventurous about how we're doing it, because like 2 or 3 people are just going to get murked, like, and then it would just be like an echo. Like, but if we had enough, we need like enough people, like we would need enough people, like to be, a military, like a force, like you say, a military force that's holding on your sovereignty, like as people, and to have political power. Especially like in these days, we have to have either land, which I don't have any of that. We have to have economics, which I don't have any of that, or we have to have military power. And I don't own any of the guns in my house. Other people do, but but that's what I'm saying. So we have to either build one of those 3 up. So it is looking like the gun picking up the gun, and there's not every country has liberated themselves with a gun. That is true. But we see things like China, Cuba, they have liberated themselves with a gun, but you have countries that have literally had like non-violent like confrontation. So I would like to see a mix if it's possible, because not everybody has to pick up the gun. Because some people aren't gonna, because unfortunately some people just aren't there. But there are people who are there, and I want those people to be able to like exercise that, and because we need those people, but we also need people who are going to be in the background. That's I didn't
want to give I didn't want to give like a bad impression there. I didn't want to like give this idea of like, we should arm up to resist oppression and march on the capital of fire. No. What I'm saying is, when we have communities where we're taking care of one another with mutual aid practices, it's also imperative that those communities be armed competently. So when everything does go to shit, it's basically like, a shield against the collapsing shithole that is the United States.
I think that should be part of the community. Like if we're just, because I think like the defense part will scare a lot of people off. It's like, but if you started like, because the community is going to be like community gardens, community defense, community everything. So it would just be that like we were talking about awesome, the commune, we would be like, it would be that kind of thing where people, it wouldn't be, because that is one thing the Black Panthers did say that they felt that they failed at, is that they got associated with the gun, and that they said that like, and they hated that, like after a while that like really destroyed the shit out of their image, because they felt like they just got associated with the gun. And even though the breakfast program was like the fucking thing that like was like show like where they were shining.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I heard a member of the Black Panthers, actually. I can't remember which one because they had so many good members. A member of the Black Panthers said in, I believe it was 1971, he said, the Black Panthers is supposed to be this. You food out in your hands and a gun in your holster. That's basically what they were trying to accomplish. Food out in your hands, meaning that you're willing to help people and help your fellow man and basically uplift everyone around you. And a gun at your side in case anybody attempts to hurt you. So yeah, I think racism played a part into how the Black Panthers were associated with guns, because the gun became their image. It's like, that's what I think of the South. Like, just white people walk around with guns, no one judges them. Black people with guns, it's like,
well, that's where we got those gun laws that that we have today, because the Black Panthers are like, let's walk around with guns, then let's test that shit.
Yeah,
that's where your gun control comes in.
Also, we're studying the laws too.
Yeah,
so they knew what rules to break. They knew what rules they could, like. They knew how far they could push the law because they knew the law.
Yeah, if guns ruined someone's image, white people's image would be in the fucking ground right now. Jesus Christ. The
disconnect between when people are like Chicago, and I'm like, dude, Ukraine.
Oh my God, Ukraine! Holy shit! Yeah.
Oh, see, we're gonna get fucking canceled again because you used the U word, and
you can't say COVID, Ukraine, or fucking.
Yeah. I'm not.
Blacks with guns.
I'm not going to use the U word. I'm not going to specify which country that has just outlawed literally all left opposition and has turned their basic government into a military dictatorship. I'm not going to mention that at all. No.
So, and Felice, you did have amazing points. Absolutely. And of course, we had this conversation offline. We'll give you a little bit of behind the curtain viewers, is the fact that was one of Amira's points last night in our team meeting, is the fact that we're all extroverted and loud and obnoxious, and she's very quiet and intelligent. And I'm saying I'm loud and obnoxious, but she's quiet and obnoxious. And her intellect brings. She is the intellect master when it comes to this, and she is an amazing part of this team. And I apologize right now if I'm stepping over you at any point when you're trying to speak, but your point is absolutely correct in regards to the getting together. I go back to that mutual aid that I'm working on. Our comrade Rome has got the Tour for the Poor. And it's these ideas of supporting the communities and getting them at the ground where they need it. Because right now, the politicians aren't doing jack squat to help people on the ground or at urgent need. Yes, you'll throw out a little bit of a rebate here and a rebate there, and maybe eventually you'll get $50 back or whatever. But right now, there's people starving, there's homeless, all these different things that need to be dealt with, and it's all of us coming together. And no, we all don't have to carry guns, because I'm sure I ain't carrying a gun because I can't shoot worth shit. I was hunting with my dad, and he's like, "No, you can't do that." Old Ukrainian guy, and he's like, "What are you doing? You can't fucking shoot." So my shooting and my target practice was very limited. So I don't want to be the one who carries the gun, but I'll be the one behind the scenes working with the rest of the group and ensuring that we're an inclusive group of utilizing the disabled, utilizing the people of not having the ability to be able to be in the streets. Yes, there's going to be people in the streets, but they're going to need that whole team and everyone come together, and every member of the team is as important as the other one. So if you're carrying the gun and protecting us, or you're behind the scenes making sure that our contact list is correct, every member of the organization is important.
I think that's a really great point, ADC, because everything that you said is true. And I think there's going to be just a lot of different aspects of how we go about doing this and how we wake people up. And that's kind of where I'm kind of in that camp of, I still think that there's a lot of just, we need to get more information to people as much as possible, because there's so much lying, there's so much propaganda, there's so much corruption going on so many different levels. And so like, I think community defense is important. It's not that it's not that I think it's a bad thing, but I also do acknowledge there's a lot of people I know that are very apathetic to the situation at hand. They don't think that anything like this could ever happen in this country. They don't think a revolution could happen. They don't think that a shooting would ever happen on their street. They're still very in their own place, their own head, kind of their own little self-centered world. And that's just kind of where we're at as a society. I think especially for American culture, it's very individualistic. It's very narcissistic and selfish in some ways. But people have also just become very placated by the system. And unless you come from I think a diverse background, or you're willing to look at kind of different views, you don't understand the aspect of like guerrilla warfare, or coming from a completely disenfranchised country that has seen onslaughts of just violence upon violence upon violence, to where the citizens have had to learn how to defend themselves. And people are just really scared here. Americans have gotten really, really soft. And I don't mean that in like a rude way. And that's the thing, they won't admit it. The hubris is insane. It's like, oh, we're America, we're awesome, we're winning. And it's like, no, we're failing.
You've lost every war.
In every possible way. And it's like, we're putting ourselves at a serious disadvantage, because we do have other huge first world nations and even second world nations and governments like China and Russia that have, especially like China, has found its way to infiltrate itself into our economic system and our political system in a way, because of economics, because they can finance different aspects of campaigns and science research and all of that. And so it's just, we've really lost touch on what needs to happen. And that's why, like, I saw the yellow vests in 2018 in December when they were protesting in France. And I was just like, I would love to see Americans doing something like this. But I also understood the reality that if people were doing that, that if not the military being called, the most militaristic aspect of our police force would be put onto the streets and would round them up and put them into jail, or, you know, put them in caravans and send them somewhere else, kind of thing. And that, I think, is a real fear that we do need to, at the very least, acknowledge, and then figure out, like, how do we then deal with that? Like, what can we do to circumvent that as being a possibility? And that was what I meant by looking at community defense in that way, because people just aren't prepared to defend themselves.
Also, I want to piggyback off that in two things. One thing is the fact that starting off with your community, anyways, we have to start talking to our neighbors and stuff like that. So you start getting to know people, anyways. Not every person's going to be down, not in just on your side or not. Also, I wanted to piggyback off the thing that you said about, what was it? You were saying that people weren't ready, or this was in my head the whole time, and it just dropped out of my head, and I'm gonna have to come back to it.
The apathy part?
Yeah, I think it was the apathy part. Oh, now I remember. The fact that, one thing that intrigued me about the general strike that we were talking about last week is the fact that, like you said, the fact that we saw France and the Yellow Vest movement, that was uniquely French. And I think sitting at home being a lazy ass, sticking it to the man, would be a uniquely American strike. That is one thing that intrigued me, because I was like, I don't know about all this, because I was thinking the same thing. And I was like, but wait, that's so American. Like, being like, well, fuck this, I'm just gonna sit home, and you just be like, sit on your couch and taking, and you
know what? I like that. You know what you should do? Not only should that be the general strike where you just sit at home on your ass and do nothing, but you should treat yourself, wait for it, Uber Eats some McDonald's, and when the driver gets to your place, not only do you tip him extra, but you invite him inside and sit down and be like, yeah, man, just stop working the rest of the
But
day.
unfortunately, that's the thing, though, is that with that
That's
strike,
capitalism.
even though you're at home, it's that you're not consuming anything. So you're not
Right,
consuming streaming content and you're not buying things. And I think
And
that
it's
that's
the-
also the really difficult thing for Americans is people don't know how to cook a lot. Like they don't know how, like people don't know how to take care of themselves very well.
We've been
And
infantilized. You're right.
But
Yeah,
even
I
if you
just
do know,
spoke about an Uber driver.
but even if you know how to cook, like
We've
we have it
gotten
in Canada
soft.
where we've had places where because we wanted to fight the gas prices, where you would not fill up on one day, like where one day we would all do a gas strike and no one would go to the gas stations. The
That's a great
unfortunate part is you're filling up 5 days in advance. So you're going to the grocery store and you're spending a boatload of money to make sure you have food and resources to strike on your lazy ass on the couch so you don't starve. So they're still winning a little bit. But I know that streaming piece and us not being able to do this, that's going to be the hardest part.
That would be a black. But
strike.
if a whole country just shut down streaming for it, that actually is very scary for a lot of companies.
Well, we know the
now
overlords
that's an
that are
idea.
going to.
If
Yeah.
we could get all of the popular streamers to
To
not
strike.
stream, or if they do, it's just a black screen. Like YouTube would shit itself. It would not know what to do with itself.
This is why we need to infiltrate BreadTube.
This is exactly why, like the people who get backing because they don't come up with these kind of ideas.
Yeah.
They get paid to say stupid shit.
Yeah.
Yep. We get paid to nothing, and we say the most important shit that people need to hear, and we need more people to fucking hear this. So if you're watching, share the shit. Subscribe, fucking slam that fucking like button, subscribe to all our stuff, and go to the bloody page. Well, go into the description here and join the fucking contest. Because please like and subscribe. Like, this isn't, I'm going to come and hit you with the sales pitch shortly. But right now, it's just joining the PBN, and we need more members. We need your input. We want to, because the fucking big time podcasters, the big time celebrities that are the ones who have the biggest voice right now, they won't talk to us because of the fact we're not big enough. So we need you to help us grow and be a part of the growth. Your input is very important to us. You have a topic you want us to cover. You want to be a part of one of the panels. We need you involved. So it starts with going to the sign up page, signing up with your email and your phone number. We're not going to call you and ask you for fucking money like the Democrats, but we're going to contact you when we have great guests or we have topics like this, or we have Noli coming on for another propaganda episode. I know she was pissed she wasn't a part of this one, but we've got fuck, the cops shoot everyone every day. So there's every day could be a propaganda episode.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's so fucked up. But it's like, yeah, which one am I gonna choose?
Yeah. So I'm gonna go first because I'm on a roll, and I might as well just fucking hit you with the sales thing. So I'm fired up, I'm whatever, but I'm also heartbroken, and like I'm going to get personal here. So on Tuesday, our oldest child, Pixel, was admitted into the mental health ward in BC, Canada, under the Mental Health Act. Pixel's been suffering with mental health their entire lives. They have ADHD, which I know because fucking I have it, but they also have bipolar and other mental health conditions that they've been suffering with. They are 20 years old, but they have the ability of maybe a 13 or 14-year-old to take care of themselves, so they really can't. They're currently in a toxic situation with my ex, their mother, and their mother's partner, who fucking don't accept them to be part of the LGBT community. And we'll talk about them. They live in a house and Pixel's downstairs, and they hear them fucking talking about them every day about not being accepted in the community. So this is where the sales pitch comes in. We're here, we're not making any fucking money right now. So if you call us fucking grifters, fuck you. We're not grifting because we're not making a goddamn cent. If you get us to 1,000 fucking viewers and YouTube doesn't fucking cut us off for talking about those unfucking topics, then maybe we could make some money for the group. But that's a secondary thing. Right now, finances are fucked for all of us, but I really need your help to help our oldest because they're struggling as fuck. They're in a mental health ward right now. We don't know when they're going to get released. They need the support and they need to get out of that toxic situation. So I need you all to go to Baller Gear. Right on the top of the page, you will find Pug Hugs for Pixel. It's a hashtag. You can find it on my Twitter account as well. All net proceeds of the multicolored Pug shirt or the Pugacino coffee mug are going to Pixel. And for you wrestling fans, because I'm going to bring up fucking wrestling, because I will talk about wrestling whenever I can, I just created the Vacant shirt. Vacant is the most decorated champion in wrestling, which means when your fucking champion gets hurt, the title is vacant. But Vacant is the guy who takes that title. And Vacant has been the champion for all the years. So if you're a pro wrestling fan, you can get your own Vacant shirt. And I thank you there. There's the multicolored Pug shirt. We have our Pug Juby. That was Pixel's first pet. They have a kitten now. And there's the items. We've got them priced $44 for the shirts, $25 for the mugs. If you use PayPal, because Shopify keeps all the fucking money and I can't pay the supplier to make this stuff. If you use PayPal, we can pay it right away and the funds will go to the My Coffee account that we're using, the ADC My Coffee account, which then means I can transfer the money to Pixel and we can get the money to them directly. The goal is $12,000 because I want to provide them an extra $1,000 per month to be able to live and get out of this shitty situation they're in.
You heard him. Go over to ballergear.ca and go get a shirt and support Pixel. That's sad, and it makes me very, very. I'm sad now.
I'm sorry. This is what we're dealing with. So it is reality, and reality fucking sucks. And because we're in a capitalist system, I have to fucking come and do the big sell. I don't like selling anything. I like providing funds for people, but I have to fucking be the sales guy because we have to raise money. And you can also get the PVN shirts there as well, including the newest one about fucking domestic tea. We won't say the T word. You can go and find it because if I say the T word, then we're going to fucking fully get shut down. But domestic tea, yeah, something like that. And net proceeds from that go to the PVN's My Coffee. So you can support the PVN, you can support Pixel, and we can fucking raise some money and we can get funds and make sure that this group and the rest of our family that are on camera are taken care of, and we can grow and make sure this message gets to the masses because that's what's needed because we need to change the fucking system.
Well said. So does anyone else have anything going on that they want to share before we peace out for tonight? Comrade K?
Yes. Red Scared will be returning shortly to PVN. I will be making an announcement on my Twitter with @RedScared. You could find me right down there. And follow the People's Voice Network TikTok account. Please do that. That's really good. And essentially, when I do return, things are going to be a little bit different, but I promise it's going to be all in the sake of delivering better content. And my heart goes out to Pixel, and I'm sorry you're going through this if you see this episode at all. Hello, by the way. But, I have faith that you will be able to get out of that situation and blossom how you were always meant to. That is all I have here subscribe and like through the end and check out all the stuff we talked about. I'm gonna go ahead and just pass it on to you guys.
All right. Hell yeah. And Amira, what you got going on?
So I actually have a series coming out on my personal YouTube channel called Endemic Times that's going to be looking at the food crisis. There's been a lot of kind of dribbles of this in the mainstream media, but not very much. And so I'm going to be doing a deep dive into some UN reports that have come out for just kind of the food crisis in general, and then how it's related to Ukraine. And then I'm actually going to be having different segments for Afghanistan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Yemen, and how each of those countries are being severely affected by the food crisis right now, and then how that's going to affect us going into 2023. And then I also have another updating Uvalde video on the Uvalde shooting, because I've been doing a lot of coverage on Uvalde on my channel. And then also a mental health review of Palestinian children in Gaza will also be coming out in the next week. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll more than likely be sharing it on the PVN page and everything, because it's part of the network. So we'll incorporate that into the flow too. So we'll have more content on the channel. Hey, so I'm working on a the new Revolutionary Reader video. I don't know what it's called yet, but it's about white violence. And so far, it's been really interesting. So far, it's just me on screen and graphics flying everywhere. So it's kind of wild. It's fun, but and there's a video of Hitler. But so I guess I'll be back on Sunday or Monday with Overlooked News with me and Andrew, and next week there should be a new panel. I'll more likely be hosting that one, because I think next week will be my last panel for a while. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. If not, hell yeah. But welcome back, Amira, and welcome back, Chairman K. Good to have y'all back, and ADC, awesome as always. Well, everybody, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Have a good night.
Night.